not going to reinvent the wheel or do more work than what is necessary. That is just not me. I am somebody who loves time management. I like being productive and I like being efficient. Wasting time is like the worst idea in the world for me. So when one of my media mentoring program clients, Kylie Odo, asked me how I repurpose content, this podcast specifically, I said, okay, I will record a podcast episode just for you on that topic. So last year, when I was recording this podcast, I was thinking with the podcast in mind first, audio only, and then I turned the camera on, and then I made some minor edits to the video to put on YouTube, just so it was a little bit more exciting for the person watching. This year, I have swapped that. So this year, I am recording this podcast thinking of YouTube first. So I send it off to an editor now, that's a new thing, and I send my videos off to them to be edited, and then they will pull the audio for me. So then I can put that audio onto my podcast, and the video is going to be a lot more exciting. We're going to see some kind of change every few seconds because one of my goals this year is not only to step up my organic content and create it so it converts instead of just creating it for the purpose of creating it, but also to build my YouTube channel. Because for years, I've been putting this podcast on there as just like, oh, I have it, let me throw it up. But I need to do something with a little bit more of a strategy. And I need to do something to make it convert a little bit better than what it already is. So moving forward, this podcast is going to be YouTube first. We're going to scrap that audio from that podcast and put it on the actual podcasting platform. And that is just one way that I repurpose this podcast, but I'm going to get into 7 more. So you're going to get 8 total ways to hear how I repurpose this content that I create only one time. So by this point, I have the audio for my podcast and I have the video. After I have that long form video, I'm going to find probably at least 3 or 4 snippets of video that could stand on their own. So these are going to be something that's about a minute long, so I can put them on YouTube Shorts. I can put them on TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, my LinkedIn company page. They could be Instagram Reels, and they could also go on my Facebook page. So those are a lot of places for just quick short form video. Now, obviously, short form video works better on, say, YouTube Shorts than it does my LinkedIn page. But again, if I have this video and I want to be constantly putting content out there on all of my platforms, why not throw a video up on YouTube? Or why not throw a video up there on my LinkedIn page? Now, rumor has it, videos don't do so well on LinkedIn. They like more text posts or uploading of documents in a PDF that looks like an Instagram carousel. So I'll do that too on those platforms, but I'll get to that in a second. The point here is, if I have a long 20-minute video, why not chop that video up, pull 4, 5, 6 different 1-minute segments that make sense and put them on other platforms? I'm not creating new content. I'm just using the content that I already have. After I do that, my assistant will then pull the show notes for this podcast episode and she will put it on my website so it acts as a blog. And on that blog page, she embeds the player for you to listen to the podcast, and she also embeds the YouTube video. So if you go to my website, MediaMavenandMore.com, and you check out the podcast section or the blog section, you will see the show notes for every episode, and you will also see the podcast player to listen and the YouTube video to watch. So just in that one blog post, I'm killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Another thing my assistant does is she creates a pin for this blog post and then she puts it on Pinterest. So we have a spreadsheet, and in that spreadsheet, I have a link to the show notes, which I create in Google Docs. And then I just have like a checklist, like, did I promote this on social media the day before the podcast came out? Did I remind people about it the day after it came out? And then there's like a little check. Did you put this on Pinterest? A little check. Did you put this on my website? So once it gets on the website, and then there's a pin to drive traffic to it, people can find that organically if they're searching for anything on Pinterest that has to do with this podcast episode / YouTube video / blog post. At this point, I have exhausted all of the ways that I could use this video. So now I'm going to see what can I do in terms of text and images to make this live longer. So now I'm gonna create some eye-catching copy. Now I learned how to do this through an online course that I bought. If you're on my email list, you saw me mention this. The guy's name is Justin Welsh, and he creates amazing content on LinkedIn and Twitter. He created something called the Content Operating System, and he has so many different cool templates on how to write copy to get people interested to learn more. So I look at these templates and I'm like, okay, what did I talk about in this podcast? I can pull straight from my show notes, or I can just off the top of my head, like, hello, I was here. I'm saying these words. I know the topic that I'm talking about. So I can just write something quickly and put that text on Twitter, put it on LinkedIn, put it on Facebook. You can also put it on your LinkedIn company page. So I'm using text to drive people to the podcast, the blog post, the YouTube channel, whatever it is. Now, many times I won't post a link because, if you may have heard by now, if you post a link on these social media platforms, they will decrease its reach because they want to keep people on the platform. They don't want people to click on that link and go elsewhere. So sometimes I'll just say, hey, it's on the podcast. Like, you can figure it out. It's in my bio. Like, if you really want to find the podcast after I tell you it's on my podcast, I'm pretty sure you could. Something else you can do is add an image with this text. Now that image you can also put on all of the platforms I just mentioned, but you can also put it on Instagram because Instagram needs an image. So if you add an image, it could be of you working, it could be a stock photo. I'm not a big fan of stock photos. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a good stock photo. But when you're scrolling through social media, like if people follow me, they want to see me, they don't want to see me using stock photos. So I did a personal branding photo shoot a couple of years ago, and I've pretty much exhausted all of those pictures. But listen, break out your switch pod. I will link to this in the show notes of this episode, in the description of this video, and take videos and pictures of yourself, and you can use these. So use an image to put that catchy text that you came up with and then put it on Instagram. And remember, we're not just like writing one thing and posting it. Like, if this podcast episode is 20 minutes long, I can write a few different things and post it at a variety of times. Now, I mentioned video, and that brings me to my 7th point. Instead of posting the text with an image, post the text with a video. Now, this gives you the opportunity to add TikTok into the mix. And then you can still post this on every other platform. With Instagram, you can use it as a post, you can use it as a reel, you can put it in your stories. So again, you can use stock video if you have Canva Pro like I do, free trial. I will put that link to the free trial in the show notes and description. But you can also, again, break out your switch pod and take some video of you working. Like, that's it. So you can use video for TikTok, Instagram Reels, stories, all of the other places. So don't just think you need text or text and an image. You can also use text and a video. Now, finally, the 8th way that I repurpose this content that I am creating right now is I will create what on Instagram is called a carousel. On LinkedIn, it's something different, but on Instagram, it's called a carousel. And this is super useful if you have something where it's like 5 tips, 7 ways to whatever, because then you have your header image, and then people will scroll through for tip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then by the time they get to the last one, it's like, hey, you want more? Follow me here, double tap here, join my email list here, whatever it is. So you can do this on any platform. I think Facebook, they get kind of weird about where they put the images if you upload more than one. I find this works best on Instagram because you can upload them in an order. And then with LinkedIn, you don't want to post multiple images. Instead, with LinkedIn, and I learned this from Jay Krause in his latest podcast episode, check out Creator Science. If you're not a listener or if you're not a subscriber, he's fabulous. I'm in his lab. Just joined, love it already. More on that in a future podcast episode. What I learned from him on LinkedIn is instead of posting a bunch of images, create a PDF. So again, I just do this in Canva. I just export it as a PDF, and then you upload that PDF and it kind of turns into a carousel like you would see on Instagram. This is something I don't schedule on LinkedIn or on Instagram. Instead, I will just set time aside once a week, twice a week, and I'm like, okay, just put some content up here. Like, I already have the content. It's just a matter of putting it into Agorapulse. Agorapulse is what I use to put everything on social media. Again, another thing that I will link to in the show notes of this podcast and the description of this video, just because I want to give you as many tools as I can to help you do this. Because while that sounds like a lot, I just blew through 8 different ways that I repurpose this content. Like, remember, I only create this stuff one time. So I'm sitting here creating it, and then the repurposing, it really doesn't take as long as it sounds like it does. What I suggest is do what I do, create a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, it's like Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever it is, wherever you want your things to go. And remember, you can pretty much double down on these things. This exact same thing I put on TikTok is the exact same thing I put on YouTube Shorts, is the exact same thing I put on Instagram Reels. For that reason, I try to make it under a minute just because a YouTube Short is a minute or less. Yes, you can go longer on TikTok. Yes, you can go longer on Instagram Reels, but for the sake of time, I'm like, let me just do a minute so I can kill 3 birds with 1 stone, if that makes sense. Like, I am making this as easy as I can for myself. Something else that I do that makes it easy for me to repurpose content is one day I will record the content. So for example, I will sit down and I will record 4 podcast episodes in a row. So at the same time, I'm recording 4 YouTube videos in a row. And then when I get those edited videos back, that's when I chop them up into little 1-minute segments. And that's when I will add subtitles using Descript. Just started using that. Love it. Don't have a link for you there yet, but I will work on getting one for you. And then I will put it in Repurpose. I will use Canva for some things. If it's not video friendly, like sometimes I'll use an image, sometimes I'll use a carousel. It just depends because again, different platforms like different things. Like LinkedIn. LinkedIn doesn't like video as much as Instagram does. So maybe I will create images in a PDF to put on LinkedIn versus a reel that I'll put on Instagram. I have laid this all out in the show notes. You can find that again on my blog, becomeamediamaven.com. The show notes if you're listening on the podcast, and the description if you are watching on YouTube. And if you are not watching on YouTube, I am going to link to my YouTube channel because I do want you to head over there and subscribe. Like I said, listen people, I have hired video editors to make this shit look cool. So come and watch it. This is like the new thing for 2023. I want to step up my YouTube game. Jessica Stansberry, Amy Landino, Sunny Lenarduzzi. You are my motivators. You are my inspiration, my YouTube inspiration. I hope I am doing you proud, or I will do you proud. Like, listen, I'm just getting started. Give me a minute. So I will link to my YouTube, and then all the other things that I talked about. Canva Pro, try it out for free. Agora Pulse, try it out for free. All of the links, you can get them in all of the places. Thank you for listening. That is the quick tour on how I will repurpose what you are watching or listening to right now in 8 different ways in no time. If you like what you're listening to and if you like what you're seeing, let me know. Share this with your friends, a fellow colleague, your business owner bestie. Hit me up on Instagram. I'm at Christina All Day. I'm there on Twitter, LinkedIn, pretty much all of the places. If you can't find me there, the work stuff is at Media Maven and more. And I will see you again here on Become a Media Maven in 1 week.